It was early morning, but the sky was still gray. The air was cold and heavy, carrying a strange silence. Elliot slung his backpack over his shoulder and stepped out of the house. Today was the most important day of his life. Final exam day. For the last 6 months, he had been preparing for this moment, staying up late, studying hard, pushing himself every single day. He had promised his mother, "This time, Mom, I'll get that scholarship. Just one chance, and everything will change." His mom, Mary, a nurse who had worked double shifts just to support him, smiled and said softly, "I trust you, honey. Just be careful, and the roads are icy today." Elliot smiled back. "Don't worry, Mom. I'll be fine." And with that, he grabbed his coffee, stepped into the cold, and walked out with a heart full of dreams. Snow covered the streets in a thin, shimmering layer. The town was just waking up, people hurrying to work. But Elliot could only think of one thing. "I can't fail today. Not today." The school wasn't far, but time was racing faster than his steps. He looked at his watch. 7:42 a.m., only 18 minutes left before the exam started. He began to walk faster. At the intersection, the light turned red. He glanced around. The road looked almost empty. He hesitated for a moment, then crossed anyway. That's when it happened. A sudden screech, tires skidding on ice, a blinding flash of headlights, and then the crash. Everything went silent. The coffee cup flew from his hand, his bag hit the ground, and Elliot collapsed on the frozen street. People rushed toward him. Someone shouted, "Call 911!" Another knelt beside him, holding his shoulder. Elliot's lips trembled as he whispered, "Please." "My exam? I have to go." And then his eyes slowly closed. 15 minutes later, the ambulance arrived. Elliot was still alive, barely. His fingers were still gripping his pen tightly. "He's losing a lot of blood," one of the medics yelled. "Hang on, kid. You'll make it," the driver said, speeding toward the hospital. When they reached the ER, nurses rushed him inside. His mother, Mary, got the call while on duty. "My son, an accident?" Her knees buckled as the phone slipped from her hand. She ran through the snow to the hospital, heart pounding. When she arrived, Elliot was lying on the bed, pale but conscious. He looked at her weakly and said, "Mom, I missed my exam." Mary held his trembling hand, tears streaming down her face. "Shh, don't worry about that now. You'll be okay. That's the only exam that matters." The doctor came out and said quietly, "He's stable for now, but there's internal bleeding. We need to operate immediately." Mary nodded without hesitation. "Do whatever it takes." That night, the hospital room was silent, except for two sounds: the slow, steady beep, beep of the heart monitor and the faint whisper of snow falling outside the window. Elliot couldn't sleep. He stared at the ceiling, thoughts crashing in his head. What if I fail? What if Mom has to go through all this for nothing? Did I waste it all? Just before dawn, he called the nurse and whispered, "Can I have a pen and some paper?" She handed it to him, a little confused. His hand shook as he began to write. "I couldn't take my exam today. But maybe this was the real test and the test of courage. Success isn't about grades or numbers. It's about not giving up, even when you want to." And below that, he wrote, "Tell Mom, I tried." At 7:55 a.m., right when students at his school were receiving their exam papers, the steady beep of the heart monitor flattened into one long tone. Doctors rushed in, but it was too late. Outside the room, Mary heard the words no mother should ever hear. "I'm sorry." Her bag slipped from her hands. She covered her face, trembling, then walked to her son, kissed his forehead, and gently picked up the note from his bedside. A few days later, the entire school gathered in the auditorium. The principal walked on stage holding a small, folded piece of paper, Elliot's note. He looked at the students and said, "Elliot couldn't take his final exam, but he passed a test far greater than any written one. He showed us what real strength looks like." The hall fell silent. A chair was left empty, with a single white flower placed on it. Elliot's name was written on the school's honor board, under the words, "For courage beyond grades." From that day on, a new plaque was hung near the school gates. It read, "The true exam of life isn't written on paper. It's written in how we care, how we endure, and how we love." Every morning, Mary stopped by that plaque before work. She'd smile softly, touch his name, and whisper, "You kept your promise, son. You really made it." This story isn't just about an accident. It's about every dreamer who struggles under the weight of expectations. Elliot never made it to his written exam, but he passed the greater test and of courage, love, and the strength to keep trying, even in pain.